Hello and welcome to Financial Conversations with Brian. If you're new to this channel is all about anything financial. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit the like button if you like this kind of content, and let's get on with the conversation. Today I want to talk about the trade wars that are going on right now and the implications of what that means for the average person. And also I like to look at things from a positive point of view. Even though there's a lot of negativity surrounding the tariffs and the trade war, you always need to look for things that are positive and things that you can take advantage of. So it shouldn't always be negative. But I do understand the being real and looking at things for how they're currently going. Okay, so let's get into it. A lot of this about the trade wars that's going on, the results of what's going to happen, I guess, really just depends on the main thing. I'll put the microphone right here. Is how long the trade wars last. That's the key. In a short term, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference other than from a corporate standpoint. Businesses can't make strategic decisions in the environment of uncertainty. As far as big capital expenditures, they may decide to wait until the smoke clears before they put any big money down on any projects like building new plants or whatever it is. But let's just say that this trade war goes on for a while. Because it looks like right now that the U.S. and China right now, neither one seem to be wanting to give in. Some of the European countries are kind of coming around to Trump and, negotiating, but the one that's playing the biggest game of hardball is China. And really it comes down to who can hold out the longest. I've already seen videos and things about Chinese factories are basically shut down. They're saying it's worse than, let's just say 2020. We don't want to say the C word, but worse than that time period as far as the deadness of what's going on in their productivity. Some of the Chinese companies are actually slashed prices by 80%. And still have no buyers. That's staggering. But with a 245% tariff, that's like a $1 product would be $3.45. So that is massive. Okay. But now let's get to the point about if this trade war goes on for a while. Now we do know that we have products already here that are in our stores that were not subjected to the tariff. So it's not like not all products overnight are just going to jump up by an exorbitant amount. It would be on any new products that were purchased down the road. For example, let's just say with electronics, a lot of electronics come from China and places like that, Japan, whatever. But like TVs, for example. I mean, Walmart, I'm sure, has got plenty of TVs in their warehouses for a while. And with the consumer slowing their spending because of all the layoffs, those products may last a little longer before they have to repurchase because of a slowing economy. And these are just facts. But you got to think of it from the standpoint of the positive of how you can profit or set yourself into a position where you can more protect yourself or even thrive. Okay. For example, I have an eBay store. Okay. And I'm selling used, most of it is used product or product that I have stored. Okay. a lot of people are going to be going to buy more used products because new products will be subject to tariffs as as inventory depletes and they have to reorder. Then the used products are going to look very attractive price-wise, especially for someone that's like a eBay seller, or if you sell used products on Amazon or whatever. Now that price is going to look very attractive. So if you do have used items for sale, you're probably going to see more of a demand for what you've got. And another thing is like say automobiles. You know, Trump put a 25% tariff on automobiles coming in from Canada and Mexico, I believe it was. So the new automobiles are going to be very, very much more expensive than the domestic vehicles. And then also, used vehicles are going to be in demand. But you could also profit by investing possibly in U.S. auto manufacturers like Ford or GM. Now, I know there's been some news about GM, laying some people off or whatever, but if Trump gets it to where, I think he's wanting to make it to where the interest on a U.S. made only automobile would be tax deductible, then that would be an incentive for people to buy U.S. automobiles. So, if you think in that direction, then investing in, say, the stock of U.S. automakers, if there is a downturn in the price especially, take advantage of that, because you could be seeing a favorable sales climate for them in the future, right? The other thing is this right here. I'll show you silver. Here's another one. This is a Canadian maple leaf. I don't know if I can show that up close. It's got a little bit of a glare. There's King Charles. Here's the maple leaf. And this is a Gulf of America silver coin. But investing in gold and silver is a way to protect yourself and make money in this environment. Because any uncertainty in the stock market or in these trade wars or, talk of war or any of these things, people flock to precious metals. And really the time to have gotten into that was before all this took place. Some of these I've had these two are current, but I've had some that I bought back in the 90s when silver was, $7 an ounce. But if you think about it, just set yourself up. Just think about things that are domestic, okay? Things that cannot be, like job-wise, like say if you are an auto mechanic and you can repair cars, you're probably going to do pretty good because people are going to be, their older automobiles, they're going to be fixing them and repairing them instead of buying a new vehicle because the interest rates are high. And now it's more logical to, say, spend $500 or $1,000 to fix up an old automobile as opposed to going out and getting a new one. Now, Trump is wanting to lower the interest rates, and there are talks that he wants to fire Jerome Powell because evidently they don't see eye to eye on that. And, I kind of can see things from both sides. Lowering interest rates that is an inflationary event. But at the same time, though, it can be a time if a company or an individual, if they do have debt, they can refinance at a lower rate and therefore lower the debt expense and free up money in the household's budget to be able to afford the rising costs. But that's a double-edged sword. So it's one of those things where, you know, if the interest rates stay low for a long period of time, it kind of loses its momentum, so to speak, because there can only be so many house refinancings. You know, that goes on for a period, and then, you know, that comes to an end. And then also for new home buyers, having the lower interest rate will entice home ownership, which is a big boom to the economy because it puts a lot of people to work. So I'm leaning more towards Trump's end on this, but I do understand that that it can be inflationary in respect. But if Trump gets his way and Congress decides to cut all these taxes, like tax on overtime, tax on tips, tax on Social Security, then that will kind of offset some of the inflationary pressures as well. So, really, just this is my opinion. I think for things to really work, Trump's plan needs to have as few, what's the word I'm looking for? Few obstacles. He needs to get his way on most things, because if too many of the key components do not work out, then the plan may not work. And if his plan don't work, then we could be in for a very rude awakening. See, I've already been about 12 minutes into this video. Try not to talk too long, but I just wanted people to think about the opportunity. You know, like employment-wise, you know, if you worked for, say, a public utility, a power company, water company, water utility, those jobs cannot be as domestic. And that job, you know, is going to be safer than, say, a job with a manufacturing company that relies heavily on exporting or importing. So, you know, for example, I think I've mentioned this before. I work as a transit driver for my city, and you know, if expenses get too high, then people may reduce or completely abandon car ownership completely, which would put more demand on public transportation. So being in that industry would probably be a good move as well, because the demand for the service would be on the increase. Healthcare is one of those things that's kind of iffy. You know, if people have to have healthcare, but I think it's being under a lot of scrutiny right now from the Trump administration. And I think with Dr. Oz over some of the Medicaid and Medicare type things, that they're going to be looking to really streamline that. So there could be some things on the chopping block for that as well to come. But, you know, overall, you just have to think about in your mind the opportunities and try not to be all negative. I know that's easier said than done, but you have to think strategically and use the God-given creativity that you have, and just think through things logically, and don't give in to fear, because what's the old saying for fear? It stands for false evidence appearing real. You know, Satan loves to put fear in your life. So you got to counter that and say, I'm not going to go down that road. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for today. I haven't made a video in a few days, so I wanted to drop one. And since the tariff war has been in the headlines, I thought I would go in that direction for this video. Thanks, you guys, and have a blessed evening. Bye-bye.